Round 5 of the GMT classical tournament would determine who will have the best winning chances of winning the triathlon of the 2023 edition, because 4 of the leaders were clashing between each other, which definitely would bring some very heated up and exciting action. Let's have a look at some of the most interesting moments of round 5. We are going to start with the game of Amin Bassem playing against Daniel Bogdan-Diak. The game was rather peaceful and finished one of the earliest. So after c5, knight c6, d5, we eventually got to a position which really resembles to the ground field, with the difference that white has an extra tempo. d4 is necessary, otherwise black just takes the center with e7, e5. e6, c4, now we transpose to some sort of a Catalan. d takes on c4, queen a4, here's a interesting playable move. d takes on c5 is a much more perhaps popular alternative. And here after queen d1, rook d1, bishop takes on c5, white plays knight d2, wants to win the pawn on c4 and claims slightly better position because of the strong bishop on g2. c3, all of this has been played before. Castles, knight b3, bishop e7. White normally chooses here between c4 and knight f to d4. So here the Egyptian grandmaster chose knight e4. Again, knight e4, c takes on d4. White fixes his pawn structure and is thinking about causing black some issues with the development of the queen side, because you see the bishop on c8 can't develop because the pawn on b7 is undefended. So knight e5 is played to stop that problem. Bishop d2, white takes care of the c3 square, black secures the knight on d5 against e4 threat, knight a5, bishop f6, rook c1. All of this already had been played before, so up to this moment the players were basically following other games played at the highest level. b6, knight c6, bishop b7, rook c2. So far the players were following the game of Krishnan Sashikaran playing against Radoslav Wojtaszek last year. Rook fc8, and white was simply unable to cause black any real problems, because after king f7, knight e5 check, the position inevitably simplified to an endgame. So after the trade, of course, I mean, white could take on d5 and secure himself a slightly better pawn structure, but it's the obstacle of bishops, which in the end means that this arising endgame is just a draw. The Egyptian grandmaster tried to complicate matters by playing e4, having 2 bishops, but Diak just didn't give white any chances, and after some accurate moves of knight f5, knight e4, here Bassem had to play f4, allowing black to fix the king side with h5, and now finally, after bishop d6, king e8, here the Egyptian grandmaster decided to force matters and fix the game into a draw. Another draw was played between Arjun Erigaisi against Jules Moussard. Here we got, after knight c3, d5, again, yet another Kaspat structure, which is quite a popular setup in the Biel tournament so far. Bishop e7, e3, h6, bishop h4, and here the Frenchman surprised probably his opponent by playing the very rare bishop g4. Now the key idea most likely is that after queen b3, which seems to be the refutation, white is threatening to take on b7, also bishop f6 and win the pawn on d5. Black can sacrifice just the pawn, because queen b7, rook b8 with rook b2 seems to be incredibly dangerous for white because he's underdeveloped. And also, white cannot win the pawn on d5 because knight e5, the bishop on h4 remains under attack, and bishop e7, black just plays knight e7, winning material. So that's why Erigaisi played f3, but that was part of the French champion's plan. Now he played bishop e6, and thanks to this potential weakness on e3, he was able to play very quickly c5, knight c6, getting a very good game for black. After king h1, c takes queen d7, the position remained about level. Queen b3 perhaps was not a good start of a wrong plan for Erigaisi. Rook e8, rook d1, rook c8, and here things started to go slightly wrong for the Indian star. He played a3, knight a5, and queen a2, which couldn't have been a good plan, because now the queen on a2 is simply cut off from the game. Here the Frenchman felt a bit ambitious. He played knight c4, eyeing for a fork on e3. Knight f4. Eric Geisy tried to complicate matters. Knight e3, bishop b5. This is not a blunder. White also is winning an exchange. But at the end of the complications, black was slightly better. So Eric Geisy tried to bring the queen back in the game. And after bishop a5, takes, here, knight e2. Black was tiny, having a very small advantage, but nothing really serious to capitalize. So the Frenchman didn't find any real chances to extract anything out of this position, and draw was agreed very soon. Obviously, one of the most critical games of the round was last year's triathlon championship winner, Le Quang Liem against Yu Yanyi. So these players were, after round 4, currently in the 3rd and 4th place, and the Chinese Grandmaster desperately needed the victory, because in case of the victory, he would have still pretty decent chances to climb closer to the leaders, and with a very good tiebreak of winning the Chess 960 tournament, he would have had at least some chances to fight for the top prizes. So here, once again, yet another Carlsbad, bishop g5. This time, Le Quang Liem decided to play bishop b4. Slightly more aggressive continuation, e3, h6, g5, knight e4. This is one of the big ideas of the line. Black weakens his kingside structure, but with c5, queen a5, he usually goes very aggressive at the queen side. Also h5, h4, trying to attack the bishop on g3. There's a lot of theory. Yu here played a very rare move a3, which has not been tested so much. And the point is that after knight c3, white can play queen b3, simply wins back the piece, and yeah, black is probably not very happy with the outcome. So instead, what happened here, bishop takes on c3 was played. Now knight c3 is not very good, because simple queen c2 is possible. As you can see, the pawn on c7 for black drops. He loses all kinds of dynamics. Now instead, black continued with the idea to play h5. So the threat is h4, bishop b5, f6, trap the bishop. f3 seems to be necessary. Knight g3, h takes on g3, queen e7. And here, after king f2, it seems that white is doing all right. The king stands exactly where it should be. And after knight e7, here things started to go wrong for the Chinese Grandmaster. Most likely he had to go for c4, ask black what he's going to do, because most likely black wants to castle long, and c4 would probably remove him the possibility to play c6, because then again, after doing this, you don't want to castle long. Either way, it would have been a different game. Here, the Chinese Grandmaster play bishop d3, perhaps a little slow. Knight f6, queen f4 check, bishop d7, and queen b4. The idea is pretty good. But the thing is, after b6, he had to opt for the queen trade, most likely. So queen e7, king e7, and consider moves like c4, having probably a balanced position. Also, in the post-game interview, the Vietnamese top Grandmaster didn't really know how to properly evaluate this position, but probably it's about level. Now instead, here, the Chinese Grandmaster didn't feel the danger. He played knight e2, probably underestimating his position. After the very strong c5 here, white already had to be accurate and take on c5, because after b takes on c5, although black already feels slightly better, black can never castle long. Now instead of this, Yu played queen b2, and after c4, bishop c2, long castle. Now he realized that his counterplay at the queen side is non-existent, because at any moment when white plays a5, black just closes the queen side with b5, and the white king is in danger, because think about moves g4, g takes on f3, or h4, queen d6, get the queen on g3, and from here things started to go, again, incredibly wrong for the Chinese Grandmaster. So he tried to trade queens once again. Le Quang Liem denied. Rook e1, rook e8, attack the pawn on e3, knight g1, a5 pushing away the queen, king c7, so black is already trying to play queen d6, h4. The position for white is very difficult, and in difficult positions, people tend to make mistakes. e4 was not a good move, but then again, white's position already was quite bad. Of course, Le Quang Liem was very happy to see this move, because it opens white's king, d takes, bishop e4, has to be played, h4. As you can see, white's king is getting open very quickly. And here, yet another mistake, but again, difficult to suggest something better for white. Queen d6, threatening queen g3, and white's position just collapsed very quickly without any resistance. So king g1, a sad move, but difficult to suggest something better. And here, the Vietnamese Grandmaster should have simply played knight g3, as he confessed in the post-game interview. He slightly rushed. He should have thought a little bit more in this position. Then after rook h2, f5, trade the rooks, position the rook on e8, and white's position is simply crumbling because the rook on h2 is unable to help the king, and knight on g3 gives black all kinds of mating ideas. Now instead of this here, the Vietnamese Grandmaster play queen g3, queen g7, queen g3, and maneuver back the queen. But again, he didn't really spoil much of his position, because now he finally picked up the idea of knight g3 and exploiting the first-rank weakness of white. After queen h6 first, attacking the rook. Now take the rook here, rook e8. Finally, for the Chinese Grandmaster, this was enough. He stopped the clock because the threat of queen e3 or the back rank exploitation is simply too much, and there's no defense against all kinds of threats. Big victory for the Vietnamese Grandmaster, who was now in the lead of the tournament, scoring 4th victory in 5 rounds. But the most important game of the round was the two leaders, the shared leaders, David Navarra against Vincent Keimer, and you could definitely expect this is going to be an exciting game, and it was. It definitely did not disappoint. After Ruy Lopez, knight f6 show castle, rook e1, here Navarra decided to avoid martial variation, which usually happens if black plays early d5 and knight e5. So a4 is a known way to avoid this. Keimer played b4, d3 here, so we are having a positional struggle. Knight a5, c5, d4. White immediately tries to clarify the situation in the center. The position sort of resembles the Chigorin, because Chigorin knight a5, c5 has been around for a long time, quite a popular system for black. Here, Keimer decided to include c takes on d4 and play bishop b7, and about here his preparation ended. d5 makes sense because this is one of the common ideas of the Ruy Lopez. Knight e7. Navarra confessed after the game he had 2 moves here, knight c4, knight b3. He decided to play knight c4. Takes, rook c, b3. And the first critical position of the variation here Keimer played queen a5, something which engines didn't really like. His idea was pretty obvious. He wants to play bishop d8, bishop b6 to bring the bishop in the game. However, this comes at the expense of the unfortunate placement of the queen. Perhaps he had to play something like knight b6 immediately, but then again, the pawn on b4 could be vulnerable in some lines. After bishop e3, bishop d8, rook c1, bishop b6, queen d2 seemed to be the most natural. Knight h4, white was looking for ways to exploit the weakness of the f5 square, because even if black plays g6, white still can proceed to play knight f5, g takes, queen g5 check, so black simply cannot do that. Now, that's why Keimer played a5, so that he can play queen d8 and bring the queen closer to the defenses. Knight f5, queen d8, and another critical position here. Apparently, the strongest move here was f4, which was rejected by both players because both of them suggested rook e8. And seemingly, after f takes on e5, black plays rook e5 and is very happy. Well, they missed simple bishop b5, and unfortunately now this rook has no good retreat squares. There's no checks. Queen b6, you can always play queen f2. White always retains better chances. Rook c1, queen c1, there's no tricks with knight e4, so white would have retained a better position. Now, instead of this, Navarra played the very tempting queen g5, g6, and now he played f4. But this was based on miscalculation, because after e takes on a4, e5, d takes on e5, the Czech Grandmaster wanted to play rook e5, which was his original idea, and only about here he realized before playing rook e5 that it simply meets knight takes on d5, and because of the unprotected rook on c1, he can never capture the knight on d5. And that's why he had to push everything forward, play d6, and pray it works. Although he confessed he felt he might be already losing here. Keimer picked up the best move, knight e7 check. King g7 is the critical move. There's no repetition because knight f5 check is king h8. And here, rook takes on e5, of course, is a big mistake. But again, for white, it was not easy. He should have perhaps continued knight f5 check, king h8, trade here, and play knight h6, king g7, takes, and try to complicate matters with rook c7, rook e5, rook a5. But it's pretty obvious that black is pressing here because he has two minor pieces for the rook, and the pawn on d6 for white is going nowhere. Now, instead of this, Navarra played rook e5, and here the young German had absolutely stunning idea, try to win the game. If he only could check it from the black's perspective, as you can see, it seems pretty obvious that f6 is the move to be played. But then again, the question is what happens after knight f5 check. You cannot go king g8. This is where the bishop is. King h8, queen h6, that's a mate threat. So g takes on f5 and rook e7. And you just don't see any defense here for black because, once again, there's two kinds of threats here, queen g7, queen h7. And that's the reason why Keimer simply dropped this line. However, he had absolutely stunning way to win this game if he had found incredible rook f7. Now, the point of rook f7 is that bishop takes on f7 is impossible. As you can see, the rook on c1 is not protected. Also, with the bishop on f7, white loses the threats to deliver the mate. So obviously, it's got to be rook takes on f7. Now, the key point is queen b6 check, and black delivers forced mate. I mean, there's two moves, king h1, king f1. King f1 allows black to play bishop g2. The king cannot escape. Check, 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 check. You see, all of this is pretty forced. And now, the most important move, queen check. So you're taking the rook on c1, queen b1 is a mate on the board. King h1 is a different story. It's also a possibility. And now again, the same bishop g2 check. King takes on g2, rook g8 check. King h1 is simply mate on the board. There's no way to escape. Also, king goes here, that's simply a mate on the board, rook g1, queen e3. And king h3 finally is queen e3 check. Here, rook g4 check, king h5, queen h3, mate on the board. So the entire idea of this rook f7 actually is just to gain the square of e3, right? So once again, here, queen b6, king h1, takes, rook g8. As you can see, this critical square is so important because the white rook doesn't protect it. During the live interview, we were discussing this idea immediately, like with queen b6 check here, and now takes on bishop g2, but we did not immediately see what to continue after king h3, as obviously the rook on e7 protects the e3 square. All of this was very difficult to pick up, but apparently here Keimer had another opportunity, which perhaps was more human. He could have played rook takes on c4. Now, the key idea is that after rook takes on c4, f6, knight f5 check, he has access to king g8 because the white's bishop no longer stands on c4. Now, queen h6, g takes on f5, rook e7. Now he can play rook f7. And after the capture, queen h7, king e6. White probably has to play rook d4 to strand the black queen on d8 against the queen d7 check. But once again, it's pretty obvious, even with the naked eye, it's black who is pressing here. It's either f3 or bishop e4, two strong pieces here for black, giving him better chances. But white is still not lost. Now, let's jump back again to this position from the white's perspective, because after queen e5 check here, Keimer played f6. And his idea was that queen f4, he's going to play queen b6 check, queen e5, queen c5, queen e5, and position the queen here on the central square, stopping, obviously, first rook d8. And then queen c5, queen e5, stopping any white's threats. Now, here Navarro found a very strong response, queen d4, limiting black's piece domination, and it just was very unclear who is even playing this for the win. Rook c7 was the only move for Keimer. D takes on c7 is impossible. The queen on d4 is hanging. That's why rook e1 was played, also protecting against rook takes on e7 threat. Rook d7. Now rook e6 protects the pawn on d6. And finally, Navarra took on f4, as black no longer has access to the e5 square. Bishop a6 was a very human move. Bishop a6. Perhaps white continued with bishop d5. Really difficult to tell at this point. Queen b6 check. Queen e3, strong response by Navarra. King f2. And now it was very unclear how black is going to continue. But because at every given moment, rook takes on d6 meets knight f5 check. G takes on f5, queen g3, and white is out of the danger because that's a check, and he simply takes on d6, or after king h6 just delivers perpetual check. So that's why here Keimer tried to postpone his decision making until the next time control, because this was move 38, h4. He always could have played queen h7. This is a move he did not definitely want to make in time trouble. But after h5, queen c5, black simply ran out of time. So at move 40, Keimer had to make this very brave decision to play queen h7. After trade, king e3, now suddenly white is very active, advances with a king, and it was quite difficult to understand who is even playing this for the win. So rook a6 was another opportunity for Keimer, with the idea after king d4 sacrificed exchange, play here, and after rook d5 go for activity at the king side. And it was pretty difficult to evaluate from afar who would win this pawn race, but Navarra had calculated it all, and in the postgame interview he showed some very interesting drawing lines for both players. Keimer decided this is not the way to go. He played rook f8, king d4, king f7, king d5. White centralizes his pieces, and after rook e8, here Navarra found another beautiful shot, knight c6. Now the point is, after rook e6, knight e6, white is still feeling pretty safe. Knight c5, king c6, this pawn is moving forward. Here actually it was the young German who had to be accurate, and he had to organize counterplay at the king side after g5. Very accurate play by white, king c6, threatening to play knight c7, and here Keimer had nothing better to do than to take it, knight c7 check, and agree to a repetition. Why this is a draw? Because after knight c7, king f7 is impossible because king b6 traps the rook. Keimer could have continued with king c8, but after knight c5, once again he has to go back and repeat the position, because let's say f5 would be a big mistake because of d7, king d8, king d6, and he has to give away the rook on d7. An amazing draw in the end, which means that we can see the results of round 5. Le Quang Liem scores the only victory of the round, which allows him to jump in the overall lead. David Navarra wins in Keimer's a draw, perhaps a slight disappointment for the German player. Still, very exciting game. Daniel Bogdandiak against Amin Bassem, Arjun Rugais against Jules Massard finished in a draw, rather peaceful games. Here are the new rankings after round 5. Last year's triathlon winner Le Quang Liem is now back in charge, leading the tournament. Again, 4 victories in 5 rounds. Incredible performance by the Vietnamese Grandmaster. David Navarra, Vincent Keimer currently share the third place. Navarra has the better tiebreak because he finished in the 3rd place in the Chess 960 tournament, which serves as a tiebreaker. The action comes back on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central European Summer Time with more exciting games. 2 more games still to go. Very difficult to predict who is going to win this. 3 very serious contesters for the top prize of 10,000 Swiss francs. Come back to watch it live here in Biel and enjoy this. Greetings, all chess fans. We are back once again live from Biel, Swiss city here in Switzerland. The tournament is approaching the finish line. Today we are playing the 6th round of the GMT tournament classical portion. And again, exciting action awaits us. Your host as usual, that's Angelika Volkova. I'm Grandmaster of the Nations. And hope you're gonna have some interesting moments here with us, trying to explain the thought process of these strong grandmasters.
Yesterday we just returned to the classical portion after the rest day. We had some very exciting games, exciting draws. I'm looking forward to today. I think there will be not less excitement than yesterday. And yeah, let's maybe dive into the Biel Chess Festival and show you guys what it's all about here in Biel.
Indeed. So these are the 8 invited grandmasters. As you can see, the highest seeded player is Yu Yenyi, who comes back once again to Biel after his performance of last year. Like Wang Liam, the reigning champion of the Grandmaster Triathlon. He's also in the lead of this year's tournament. The young Indian superstar Arjun Rigaisi, very strong young grandmaster from Romania, Daniel Bogdandiak, of course, German superstar Vincent Keimer, the Egyptian grandmaster Amin Bassem, the only player in the African history to reach the rating of 2700 ELO, the Czech grandmaster David Navarra, the most experienced player of the field, and the reigning French champion Jules Moussard.
And here we can see the Grandmaster Triathlon format. We already discussed it before we are approaching the finish line. We have 2 games to go, but we had altogether 28 games with the 3 sets of round-robin tournaments. We had in classical portion, we are approaching the finish line with 7 rounds. We already had rapid, and we already had blitz with 14 games, 2 games, 1 for black and 1 for white altogether. And also if we count Chess 960, we're going to have the 35 games altogether.
But it's the scoring system which makes this tournament so interesting and exciting because, as you see, everything counts together. Blitz, rapid, of course, you get 1 point in blitz, in rapid 2 points for the win, but the classical tournament decides in the end who wins the overall triathlon because it's hopping 4 points for a win and only 1.5 for a draw. And this means there's no greater motivation than this tournament system to invite the players to fight for the victory.
And let's recall you one more time the time control of the classical round-robin tournament right now, which we are going to have. We will have a lot of time to discuss the games. We are going to have 120 minutes, 2 hours for the first 40 moves. The players are getting, after that, 60 minutes, 1 hour for the next 20 moves. And only then, at move 61, they are starting getting 30 seconds per move, starting from this move. And also, there's an additional 15 minutes for the rest of the game.
So it's going to be a long day indeed. That's the prize fund, why these players are invited here. That's what they're fighting for. The first place will walk away with 10,000 Swiss francs. In total of 28,500 Swiss francs in total. Makes it very, very interesting for the players to compete. All right, so I think that we still have, Angelika, something like 1 minute perhaps. Let's very quickly recap what else is going on here in Biel, because it's not just the GMT tournament, there's some other things going on as well.
Absolutely, we have closed tournaments, Grandmaster Triathlon, which is our main topic of the broadcast, obviously. We had especially Accentus Chess 960, which happened at the beginning of the event, which served as a tie-break for the players. As well, we have Swiss Championship. There is a Swiss Rapid, Blitz, Fischer Random Championship. We have as well other open tournaments. For example, if you would like to check out the players of Grandmaster Triathlon, you can not only look them, not only be a spectator here, but also be the player yourself. You can participate in the Master Tournament, Main Tournament, Amateur Tournament. There is as well the Weeks Tournament. There is other Rapid and Blitz tournaments, and Vinetum Youth Tournament and Simul Exhibition.
And these are the winners of the previous editions. As you can see, they feature some household names. Back in 2011, one of the greatest players of all time, Magnus Carlsen, won here in Biel. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has won the Biel tournament record 5 times. And the last year's winner of the tournament, like Wang Liam, is back in the field.
And here is our schedule. We see we already have the approaching to the end of the second week. We have the round 6 today. We have tomorrow we'll have round 7, the last final round of the Grandmaster Triathlon. But after that, we're not going to stop commentary because we will be here actually at 2:30 Central European Summer Time on July 27 to cover the last 10th round of the MTO tournament.
Of course, the MTO tournament is something which we have slightly neglected because all the attention mainly goes for the GMT tournament. When there's not a lot of action going on in GMT, we are going to have a peek also what's happening in MTO. Right now, the Chinese Grandmaster Buksanji is leading the tournament, but let's talk about it a bit later. Right now, let's switch back action to the GMT tournament and check what are the current standings before the last 2 rounds of the triathlon.
And here we have the overall ranking. We remember that earlier David Navarro and Vincent Keimer were leading, but after yesterday's round, very important victory over Yu Yang Yi brought Le Quang Liam, Vietnamese Grandmaster, with 29.5 points to the first place, and he's leading 2 points in front of the David Navarro with 27.5 with Vincent Keimer, also the same amount of points.
That's right, and also I think it's fair to mention that the Vietnamese Grandmaster has scored 4 victories out of 5 in the classical portion. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's taking no prisoners here, no draws, and that's what makes this tournament so interesting. And these are the pairings for round number 6. As you can see, the leader, Le Quang Liam, is playing against Frenchman Jules Massard with white collar. He's definitely going to try to capitalize and win this game and perhaps also cement his chances in the leadership. Remaining Grandmaster Daniel Bogdan-Diak faces Arjun Erigaisi. Again, very important game. Vincent Keimer against Amin Bassem. The German is going to try to capitalize on his one-move advantage. And for Yu Yanyi, his chances to win the tournament are pretty much over. But of course, he is going to try to come back strong and inflict a potential loss against David Navarro.
Indeed, and chat saying we have an interesting pairing, Le Quang Liam against Jules Moussard, the person who never draws, and Jules Moussard, who had all draws so far. So it is going to be exciting to watch, of course.
All right, as you can see, the games have already started. We are going to see a lot of moves to be played in the first moves because usually the players are well prepared. We are having here Queen's Indian. Now this is something I can relate to quite a bit because Queen's Indian defense is my favorite weapon of a black. After d4, d4 remains Vietnamese Grandmaster's main continuation. Knight f3, e6. Okay, here he plays, I think he was opting usually for c4. c4, e6, knight c3 as far as I remember. He had played some lines here before in Biel. Now this time he plays knight f3.
So his idea is to say if you want to play bishop b4, I'm most likely going to play bishop d2. So I'm
not sure. Probably it has something to do with the prep.
Yeah.
Because again, black has million combinations here. He can play d5, he can play b6, he can play bishop b4, then d5. Really difficult to tell. Again, a big important moment here when it comes to preparing against the best players in the world is the element of surprise. And if the players are playing out the same system, the same line over and over, their opponents will eventually prepare very deeply, right? And that's why, of course, sometimes you want to change something, and we are seeing here in Biel a couple of very good opening preps, new novelties played out, and sometimes it gives the results.
Yeah, absolutely. But indeed, the Vietnamese Grandmaster is trying to avoid the Nimzo Indian, for example, with this move order. And yeah, b6 is played, okay.
But I mean, he can still play knight c3, right?
He can still play knight c3, but
right.
He's trying to
There's
avoid.
some tricks.
Yeah, there are tricks.
There are some tricks. Okay, so g3, bishop a6.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the theory, of course, is moving on all the time. And the choice between bishop b7 and bishop a6 always has been there. I remember, I mean, back in the day, bishop b7 was the main move without any question. Then at some point, bishop a6 became highly contested line. Then it switched back to bishop b7. Again, this popularity is changing all the time. But after bishop a6, I mean, black's idea is really simple. He just wants to take the pawn. And the question is how white protects it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there is not much of a choice here. You can protect either with, for example, pawn or queen or knight d2. But okay, you don't want to place your knight so passively. So normally the choice is between queen and pawn.
I mean, queen c2 also is super popular here. Queen b3 is less played. Queen a4, I don't think it's even played at the highest level, except of some rare games. After queen c2, there's this very common theme when black plays c5, d5, takes, bishop b7, and wins the pawn on d5, while white gets a considerable lead in development. I've played it myself at black. The reputation of this line, it's pretty good. And that's why queen c2 has the reputation that it's a testing variation, sort of. White checks if black knows everything, and if he does, then black is doing fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And b3 indeed was played, so supporting the pawn. And now the question is, bishop b4. So the idea is to not to allow white to develop the bishop on b2 like they like to do in the Catalan, right? So.
Yeah, this actually features also a small trap because, I mean, if white insists and he doesn't play bishop d2, he plays knight d2, insisting to play bishop b2. This is what some people have fallen into. I mean, there's bishop c3, rook b1, and bishop b7, and suddenly it's so difficult to stop bishop takes on d4, right? So bishop g2 doesn't stop it, and after e3...
There is bishop e4.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. It was bishop e4. So this was a nice trick. I don't think ever somebody ever has fallen into this when I'm playing with black, but okay, it's good to know. Here, and bishop e7 retreats. So, again, as Angelika already said, white normally positions the bishop on b2. And if you talk about these early checks on b4, they've been around forever. Because let's say we start with the Catalan, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, g3. This is also the same idea in the Catalan. Black gives the check on b4, tries to force white to play bishop d2, and then either bishop d6 or bishop e7. Sometimes this bishop on d2 is not doing much.
Yeah, we have also the information in the chat. Yeah, of course, we know this always. Jules Mussard almost always was opting out for the Queen's Gambit decline, actually. And for today, he went like one of the first times. And when he went for the Queen's Indian, he was normally playing Bishop B7. So it's something what he prepared as a surprise against Vietnamese Grandmaster.
Yeah, maybe they're surprising each other. So first, Le Quang Liem surprises the Frenchman by playing knight f3 and not immediately Nimzo. And then Jules comes back with another surprise, b6. So you want to definitely disrupt your opponent's prep as quickly as you can. All right, so let's go back to this position. Black normally is thinking about playing d5 to utilize the power of the bishop on a6. So white plays knight c3, thinking about e4, and this almost forces black to play d5. Otherwise, I think from a strategical point of view, allowing e4 for white and this very strong pawn chain in the center is a dangerous idea.
Yeah, indeed. And trade happens, no?
Yeah, so all of this has been played before. Rook e8, yeah, this is one of the main moves, as far as I remember in this position. Black tries to keep the bishop on e6. He's still not defining yet if he's going to push the c-pawn. Also, rook e8 prepares some ideas like bishop b4, trying to get to the pawn on e2. As you can see, there's the bishop, there's the rook, there's some ideas. And another typical maneuver for black is knight e7, knight f8, and knight e6. So you position the knight on e6 on this rook on e8 maneuver. Black frees up the f8 square, and then he's thinking what to do with the c-pawn, c6 or c5.
Yeah, that's indeed the question, but for sure black wants to play with the c-pawn, but it depends, of course, on the what white is doing in this position. So the question is...
I think there's the main move is something like queen c2. Back in 2016 in FIDE candidates, I think we already told this story. This was a highly contested line when Sergei Karyakin was playing it, I think in total 4 times in one tournament against everybody, and everybody tried to crack through the defenses of black, and nobody did it, right? So as history already proves that Karyakin managed to win the candidates and qualify for the World Championship match against Magnus Carlsen. So the Queen's Indian nowadays, I think it has sort of fallen out of the most played defenses list because all kinds of Queen's Gambit declined lines and Rogozin, they're much more popular, of course. But I mean, Queen's Indian still stands as one of the most solid defenses that can't be easily broken.
But I think there can be some ideas with a pawn on e2, for example, if queen c2. What about bishop b4?
Yeah, that could be an issue. I mean, there's always, of course, knight e5, right? So knight e5 protects the pawn on e2, opens the bishop here, and then sometimes black plays bishop b7 to finish development, because otherwise c6, knight e7 is not really possible because of this weakening of the c6 square. So if I remember correctly, black at some point steps back. But I think he wants to do it after he causes white some inconvenience. Like, let's say white commits to something like rook e1.
Yeah.
Okay, and then okay, fine. Then I play bishop b7.
Yeah, indeed. So first we want to make some sense, because bishop on a6, of course, brought some slight inconvenience because white had to play b3, right? White didn't really plan to go for it, but had to play b3 and maybe some other move as well, so like rook e1.
A lot of people actually here consistently misplay this position because knight e5, by the way, I think we are going to have a chance to talk about this at some point later. Knight e5 often is actually not such a great move because it makes sense. I mean, you position the knight on the central square, you open the bishop, you're targeting this pawn. But there's a trick that, let's say, if black plays bishop b7, and then whatever you do, I'm not sure, let's say queen goes here, knight e7, knight f8, knight e6, suddenly this knight on e5 after c5 is not where it should be. But I'm sure we are going to get there at some point later, right? So it's going to be a very interesting topic to talk about. So you need to understand this position. So that's why, again, I think it's a smart choice by the Frenchman. It's a smart choice of the Frenchman to get a big fight. There's a lot of pieces on the board. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be for sure fun. It's something we can see that Le Quangliam is still in his thoughts. Maybe I'm seeing that he didn't really expect this bishop a6. Of course, he had a preparation against it, but that was not something main he was looking for in this game. And we see that actually, Jules had played all the draws in the classical portion, so he basically had many chances to push for a win, but he still played a draw. And in some position, he was happy to have a draw. Against, I think, Bassam, right? It was winning position, so he could have even won this. Maybe today is the day when he can try to be ambitious, but it could be also punished, right?
It could be, of course. I think it's still a bit too early to tell. We are going to see. So I'm right now thinking, Angelika, what could be on Le Quangliam's mind? Because I don't think he's ready for Queen's Indian today. So if his opponent plays bishop a6, again, not so popular today. Again, first surprise, Queen's Indian. Second surprise, bishop a6. And this is something I think he hasn't really checked in the morning or yesterday, whenever he was preparing, or maybe even before the tournament. And that's why the first thought that I would have in this position, what kind of game my opponent has seen to prepare against me. So I try to recall what I have played against Queen's Indian with bishop a6. And usually players at this level, they have a very good memory. And maybe Liam remembers, oh yeah, there was this game back in 2021. I was playing against that grandmaster. He played like that. I try to recall, how did that game continue? So probably this is where he's trying to catch me, or he has found some interesting idea. And then he tries to recollect whatever was his prep, and if possible, make some changes so that his opponent's prep, in the end, it just stops and he has to start to play himself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what also we had, like, for example, in game Navarra against Amin. Like when Amin realized he fell into this trap and he tried to get out of it, tried to find some moves which probably would not be like the best engine moves which David analyzed, but something else. And that's what players trying to do. Unfortunately for Bassam, it didn't really work out in that game, but players are normally always trying to go for something what they not to fall into the trap of the opponent.
Now the big question is what the Frenchman has prepared here. He's thinking this means that something he's not quite ready for. Again, he wants to play 97, normally. 97, knight f8, 96. But the question is, how does it feel together with knight e5? A knight e5 could be a problem, because let's say he plays knight e7 immediately. What do you do after knight e5? Because you see there's this weakness. So you can't really take it, because the pawn on d5 is dropping. White has two pieces attacking this pawn. Maybe you play bishop b7 right now. So you protect the square. This is where you step back. And after knight f8, knight e6, you try to undermine white's center with c5. So that will be my thought process. Also, I think that he can try to keep the bishop on a6 by playing something else. For example, c6. But then again, I think that white most likely will continue with knight e5, because if he does not, then black continues with knight e7, knight f8, keeping the bishop on a6. So again, some nuances here. Perhaps he's thinking about c5, but if I remember correctly, c5 is supported by engines, but then black's game could become a bit uncomfortable. I see this is something that engine loves here. We see the bar, not the lines. But for example, after takes, rook d1, these pawns could become hanging, right, at some point. So of course, black gets a lot of development, but white can always think about ideas how to undermine a black center. Bishop g5, maybe take it, knight h4, knight f5, open the bishop, attack these pawns. So it's not so simple. Yeah, maybe c5 is the principal way to continue, but white gets a very easy game here.
Yeah, it's absolutely not simple, especially with the hanging pawns. They could always be weakness. That's why French grandmaster is thinking right now, should he push c5, what he should do before. He's looking for 95 lines. He's trying to figure out what he should play in this position. And yeah, that's actually a big question, because you don't want to remove the bishop on b7 yet. You don't want to develop the knight to d7 yet because of some knight d5 jumps. So what exactly should be your move exactly here?
I'm not saying that knight e7 is bad. I'm pretty sure it's playable, but the point is after knight e5, he already has to play bishop b7, right?
Yes.
So it's tough to say. Maybe something he hasn't prepared, because I know how it goes. You are preparing for your opponent, let's say you're Jules Mossar, and you're preparing for like Wang Lian, and you have this huge database in your hotel with all the files, and you select some of the files you want to check in the morning. And you think, okay, this is definitely he's not going to play, right? And guess what? The opponent plays exactly that the next day. And you're like, oh my goodness, why didn't I check this? I think everyone can relate to this, right? At some point, who has played competitive chess, I mean, you were just saying, why didn't I spend a bit more time to check these obvious lines? Because in the end, this is what he plays.
Absolutely. And yes, chat is also saying that Drew used to playing this, stable Queen's Gambit declined lines. It's his main weapon, basically. And these lines are so unstable, so complicated position with different ideas. It is going to be for sure very interesting to follow the development of this game.
I think also Jules has nothing really to lose, because he's out of top 4. Meaning every single game he can play, it's just for either one of the last prizes or for fun. He enjoys here. He actually was the only player during the excursion, the rest day, where he spent most of the time. Everybody else left, not Jules, right? He was using every single opportunity that the rest day provided, and he just likes being here. That's why, yeah, I think that he's looking for a fight here.
He is indeed looking for some fight. Maybe this rest day brought him some adventurous strengths, and this is why he's playing. So maybe it's time for us to switch on to another of the leaders. We have David Navarre and Vincent Keimer, one of two.
All right, we can absolutely do that. So let me select their board.
So we have Yu Yangyi with white pieces against David Navarre, and we already have quite some trade. Is it Petrov or what is it? No, it's not Petrov.
This is I think this is I don't want to play today because, I mean, at the professional level, 4 nights, it is often dubbed as the forcing drawish line. The 4 nights, they are not very sharp, although maybe somebody will disagree with me. There's some excitement in 4 lines. But, for example, the main line with d4 takes, knight e4, bishop b4. Okay, there's some development, of course, at the highest level. Castles, d5 takes, bishop g4. Let me not bore you with the details. But this is mainly played at accelerated time control. So let's say people are playing at the level of 2700, you're going to see this in all kinds of rapid and blitz, where white has this small temporary initiative and black needs to precisely know what he is doing. And then if he knows what he's doing, then it's a draw. White has no risk here. But bishop b5, knight e4, and knight e4, e5, and this, I think this is just a very drawing line, right?
This is a draw offer, so to say.
Right, so maybe Yu is not very happy that the way the tournament has turned out, because he won the Chessline 60 tournament and he was very ambitious. He started the rapid tournament with 3 victories in a row, 6 out of 6, and everybody thought, okay, maybe it's the Chinese Grandmaster who will be one of the biggest favorites of this tournament. And then something started to go wrong for him because he lost the pace in the rapid. The blitz, he played, I really don't remember, I think it was not, he was not at the top, but he was playing about average. And then in the classical tournament, he kept missing some victories, especially with white, right? He had some excellent winning chances. With white, he blew 1 victory. He blew the 2nd victory. Yesterday, he suffered this terrible loss with white against Le Quang Liem, and I could easily understand that it just kills all the fun to play at all, right? He realizes it's just not going really for me here, right? So I think this might have contributed for him to play this very safe line.
Yeah, indeed. And, all the times he had an advantage, he was trying to convert it. And at the game, for example, against Vincent Keimer, he realized that there was also a similar position, but reversed places already. He was in the place of defending and he couldn't hold it. And yesterday he was just rolled over by Vietnamese Grandmaster. So indeed that's something which crosses his mind. He wants to maybe just have another rest day and prepare for the Finnish game for tomorrow.
I don't really remember, Angelica, what happens after c takes on d2 check. I guess this is some sort of a mistake. Bishop d2, queen f6. Was it short castle, bishop c3? At this level, they know this. So black is up a pawn, but he is behind the development. That's why they don't take it. They don't take this pawn on d2 for free. So queen f6 is a safe move. D takes, bishop c5. Black continues development. Queen e2 check, queen e7. That's basically a draw for, because again, queens disappear from the board. Black has no weaknesses here, and the position is completely symmetrical. So right now, Navarra is thinking, should I just play symmetrical, play short castle, and trade off everything at the e-file, or, pretend to be ambitious and make a long castle? Because, again, it's the overall rankings which matter here. And maybe Navarra is actually not so happy about this because, once again, if he would jump the overall rankings, as you are seeing here, Navarra is currently in the 2nd place. So by drawing this game, maybe he's saying goodbye to his chances winning the tournament. Also, there's a fair chance that Vincent Keimer might go ahead of him and win the game because Keimer and Le Quang Liem, they're playing with white. So that's why, from one point of view, for Navarra, a draw would be like, no problem. I'm playing with black against the high-seeded player in the tournament. Absolutely, draw is good. But given the tournament standings, perhaps he's not very happy.
He's indeed not very happy with the outcome of the opening because, indeed, there are 2 more games left, today and tomorrow. Basically, if you're playing draw today, you most likely might even say goodbye because we don't know how Le Quang Liem plays today. He keeps this winning streak. It's incredible. He lost only to Vincent Keimer, and otherwise he's just rolling over. And then it would mean actually that David Navarra would have to play in the final game against him tomorrow. But if Le Quang Liem wins today, then he's going to be already too many points ahead of him. And if Vincent Keimer also plays a draw, then also will be not such a big chance to catch him. The boss players, Vincent Keimer and David Navarro today, I'm sure they're going to try to play some adventurous chess, maybe take some risk. And indeed, long castle happened, right?
Actually, it's mathematics because Le Quang Liem is ahead of Navarra 2 points. So if he wins, this is 4 points. That's 6 points difference. If Navarra draws, that's 1.5. So he is already behind 4.5. That's it. He can't win this tournament. And that's why I think the reason for the Czech grandmaster to make a long castle is completely understandable, right? So that's why he gives some ideas, right? At least in this game, it's not completely symmetrical. I think it's Navarra who is ambitious here. And for the Chinese grandmaster, it's a bit disappointing, I guess, but not really unexpected.
For sure. And you know, also David knows how tournament goes for Yang Yi in the classical part. It's not going very well, so that could also influence his decision. He knows that there is a chance, you know, that he could play for a win. There is a chance he could be ambitious in this game, and that it could work out. But of course, Yu Yangyi is still very, very strong grandmaster. He's at highest seed in the tournament, and you know, from game to game, it can change absolutely. And for example, today it may be like he has a good day and he might play a very good game.
Here, specifically in this position, if he forget about Navarro and being ambitious, first he needs to solve some real questions. So that is, how do you deal with bishop e5? So bishop f4, that's why here the Chinese grandmaster put the bishop on f4 and not on e3, seeking the easy trade, because bishop e5 immediately asks some unpleasant questions to black. Let's say you play rook e8, which my guess would be the normal traditional response. Obviously, bishop h7 traps the bishop, a big no-no, but let's say bishop e5. And how exactly do you protect this pawn, right? Do you go back? Do you play g6, creating some holes in your position? Maybe g6 is the safe way to continue. On f6, again, white just can go back. There's bishop takes on h7, and more serious threat of rook takes on e6, and then bishop f5.
We have some suggestions from the chat that in case this game finishes and draw quickly, maybe Navarro could join us for the commentary.
I mean, if he agrees, sure. Why
Maybe
not?
for some short
I mean,
time,
that would be quite something, right? To hear the thoughts of the 27th hungry ELO grandmaster of some other games, because, you know, Angelica, I mean, yesterday, when we were doing the commentary of Navarra against Keimer, I thought more or less I understand some nuances, right? I thought I did get the right feeling of the position, but when they were here in the interview, I realized, yeah, I mean, 2700, that's something else, right? Because they're just different level. So, okay, I mean, I understand what they're saying, but the scale of their thought process, the calculation, it was just mind-boggling, right? And the higher they get, the better the calculation goes. And that's essentially the difference. I think from 2600 to 2700, much deeper calculation and finer understanding of all kinds of positional nuances.
They were calculating these pawn races of the pawn endgame of the rook endgame and like such a huge depth that they said like basically, oh, this position, it's all clear. Like the position which you're here like struggling to realize who is faster going to promote, like is it still equality? We saw always the engines show the equality, and they calculated, yeah, it's like a draw, like like it was absolutely incredible how deep they're thinking. But of course, like this yesterday's streak with rook f7, it was something really special, and it was very hard to spot, and especially with limited time and with a very crazy position and huge attack on the king. That was, of course, dangerous for Vincent.
Indeed. Okay, bishop d6, the Czech grandmaster now realizes the problem of bishop e5. Bishop e5 is played anyway. I do think that this is heading to a peaceful outcome, but again, let's not yet make any hasty decisions and select another game. I see in the chat that there's a suggestion to switch to Daniel Bogdandiak, and that's where we're going.
Okay, so here we have... Ooh. Okay, so it's...
All right.
What is this? This is...
That's bishop d2.
No, that's bishop d2, yes, but...
All right, let's
How did we arrive here? So it's some kind of Benoni pawn structure from white, but...
No, Reti.
Reti, yeah.
Reti with G6. This is invitation for white to switch to some D4 lines. Here, the remaining grams to play C4. Okay, yeah, it's definitely a playable line. It's interesting here that Erigaisi didn't play D4 because my belief, Angelika, is that very often playing D4 in these kinds of positions, it's very principled, right? You're taking space, but of course, specifically here, maybe white can switch to some Benoni or Benko-like position, and this is something that the Indian Grandmaster didn't really feel like he's playing, and that's why Bishop G7 is the safer way to continue.
Okay, Queen A4 check. That's very interesting.
That's a provocation. He's trying to provoke something. Give me something to work with. So the point maybe is Bishop D7, Queen B3, attack the pawn, attack the pawn. Let's say Bishop C6, Knight E5, and you immediately winning the Bishop on C6 with some potential for the Lasco Bishop on G2. That's why Knight C6. Erigaisi is not afraid, but what about Knight E5 here? I'm sure this is still theory, but it looks very tempting.
Knight E5 looks very, very tempting. What about Queen C7 or just castle? The question
castle.
is just castle?
I mean, Erigaisi protecting a pawn? No. I mean, castle.
Not today.
Not today. Knight C6.
There could be also Queen D7, but...
No, I think just take. But this position also, I think, looks pretty good for white, even if white doesn't take the pawn and plays against this weakness. Let's say Queen C6. Not sure what's happening here. Bishop, sorry about that. But, I mean, Bishop D2 looks a bit strange. I'm not sure what's the big idea. But then again, the Romanian Grandmaster has made some interesting decisions when it comes to the opening preparation in this tournament. He's trying to steer the game away from some mainstream theory. Maybe the idea is C takes on D5 and Rook C1. Attack the pawn on C5. And if black plays D4, he wants to play B4.
Yeah, he wants to strike immediately this... because in this position, until we have like white as if playing from like as black and black as of playing white in case they want to take the space advantage and push for D4.
Right. Looks a bit strange, but maybe the point is about to order the moves, because if you take on D5, after Knight E5, you can't play Bishop D2. Because the pawn on B2 is under attack. Right? That's a big problem. So, yeah, keep following Bishop D2. Now you see the pawn on B2 no longer is attacked. And Rook C1 is a move. Maybe also it prepares the idea of C takes on D5, Knight E5, and Knight C3. So let's say I'm going to make some random move. Let's say Bishop G4. Oh wait, Bishop G4 could be a problem, because after C takes on D5, I'm attacking the bishop here. And if you take with a queen, the Knight C3, but even this position looks okay for black. And Bishop H3, common ideas. Maybe Rook FC1, A3, B4, the typical ideas.
Yes, to hide in case Bishop H3, Bishop H1.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's another question. I think we can discuss this once we get closer about the bishop trade. I have my opinion, which is very strong about the bishop trade, but let's not jump ahead of ourselves and see if this indeed happens. First, it's Erigaisi who needs to make a decision here.
Yeah, and decision is big. Does he want to grab the space? Does he want to play for D4? Or he wants to develop the bishop right away?
You know what's interesting? There's no right answer. I think it's a matter of choice. It's a matter of taste. I mean, what do you like? Do you like space advantage? Do you like these hedgehog positions with Queen D5? Do you like Benoni-like structures? I mean, what do you like? And based on that, you make your decision. So here, I think that the Erigaisi has a number of choices. I mean, even Queen B6 looks perfectly normal. D4 looks normal. D takes on C4 might be a move.
Yeah, huge variety in this position. Like, the question is, what is Erigaisi today in the mood for? And
I don't see him in a camera. I can try to zoom out a little bit. Yeah, like this. So there you see.
He's hiding from us a little bit.
He's always having the same posture, how he's sitting. He's staring somewhere far in the audience because you're not seeing that, dear viewers, but there's a big hall to his left, to the right of the remaining grandmaster, to the left of the Indian grandmaster. There's parallel tournaments being played, ATO, HTO, MTO, a place for spectators, and the GMT players are playing on the stage with huge screens on top of them, so everybody can follow what's happening in the main event. And that's why also sometimes the GMT players are having a peek what's going on there. But I mean, mainly, of course, he's just trying to remember something. You see, he's looking right now towards the crowd. He's just trying to remember something or calculate.
Yeah, he just wants to remove his vision from the board somewhere there and still have, of course, he still has the board with him. He brings it with him, but already in a different form. And sometimes it makes it easier or better for the grandmaster to recall the lines maybe from his preparation. Maybe he saw some similar ideas, what he wants, what is he in the mood for today. But what I see is that he's not wearing the jacket anymore. Earlier he was always very serious, sitting there in the jacket, in the very serious posture. But maybe today, or like after yesterday's game, he just realized, okay, the games are not, the tournament is not going that well for me. I can relax and just play last games like without the suit.
Yeah, who knows? Again, I think we have to move on.
Yes.
I have no idea what he's going to choose. You know, I can't get in every guy's mind. Like I said, bishop g4 makes sense, d4 makes sense, d takes on c4 to some extent makes sense. Queen b6 looks logical, so I guess we are going to see. So let's select another game, something we still haven't seen, and that is one of the leaders of the overall rankings, Vincent Keimer, playing against Amin Bassem.
Indeed, we have the other leader we haven't checked yet. It's Vincent Keimer, playing with white pieces, trying to be ambitious, I guess.
This looks like exchange Karakan. I don't see yet the notation, but it looks like we don't yet have a feed from the board, but we are going to get it. This is some old picture. All right. So what was it? No, look at that. It's not exchange Karakan. It's actually, what is this?
This is Grunfeld from black and from white.
Because I could easily get there from the exchange Karakan. Okay, so d4, knight f3. Here, let me see, where's my video? Still not there. All right, so, okay, yeah, knight e2.
So this is a similar idea played with black against knight f3. d5 and knight d7 with e5.
Right. Okay, let me maybe try to get both of them in the picture.
Yes. Both players are in the thought process.
Okay. So, yeah, knight e2. This is really smart because Bassem, he's known for his love of playing King's Indian attack structures. Knight f6, g6, bishop g7 for black, knight f3, g3, bishop g2, and then d3 for white. And knight e2 is an offbeat line. So white just says, I want to play e4. And here's the trick. Maybe Keimer sensed something in his opening prep, what Bassem plays or what he doesn't play. And I would expect, of course, that the normal response for black to meet this is d5. But after d5, there's some very tricky lines here. For example,
knight b3?
Maybe, yeah, knight b3. But I was more inclined to look at e3, bishop g7, and b4. Stop c5, then play bishop e2, c4. I've played this myself with white, and if the opponent is not ready, you know, it can deliver very good results. So the big idea here is that, let's say black plays something solid and passive at the same time, white already enjoys a very good possession. So whatever Vincent found in his opening prep, he probably estimated that after d5, I think he would have continued with his b4. I'm not sure. But Bassam said, do your worst. Play e4. And that's what Vincent did.
And he went for the grab in the center, and now basically we have the King's Indian set up for a moment.
Yeah, now it's Ofimca, but in Ofimca you have to get the knight on c3, not on d2. And I know that tangents usually like these positions for black. See, bishop b5 check. Okay, that's really deep. I tried to remember what was the main line here. Was it c5? I mean, it's been some time when I've checked this, Angelika. I don't remember. I mean, d6 is perfectly fine, but now we enter some sort of offensive position. So did you understand what's the difference? In a nutshell, this is the classical King's Indian. c4, g6, knight c3, maybe d5 to Grunfeld, bishop g7, e4, d6. There's a lot of lines, but White has played c4. And the pawn on c4, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, because let's say if black at some point, let's say, plays either c5 or e5, now this weakness on d4 is feeling in some lines. So the difference here, what we have, the pawn is not on c4, and the knight is on d2. And White keeps the opportunity to strengthen the center with c3, and this is entirely something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bishop b5, yet another provocation.
I mean, I could have this position with black, like I play myself this d5, knight d7, you know, against knight f3.
Yeah.
This position could be played like with black. So maybe this could be one of the idea to get it with an extra tempo.
You mean you would play this for black exactly like Amin is playing?
So I would have the reversed colors. So instead of knight f3, d5, g3, knight d7,
I don't
bishop
understand.
g2. So
Yeah?
knight f3, d5,
Yeah?
g3, knight d7, bishop g2, e5, d3, knight f6. So to have this position,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
again, it mirrors. It mirrors exactly the same line. And here White has the extra tempo, and what we have in the game is exactly the same. Yeah, so same ideas probably can be used here. But the idea of bishop b5, I think that black, black is asked to make a big decision to play c6 or knight e7. And knight e7 could be risky, because if you put the knight on d7, black loses control of the e6 square. So think about ideas like e5, knight e5, and e6. So this is a problem. You see, you can't protect the pawn on e6 anymore, and if you have to play knight of, you can't even play knight of 8. So what I'm even showing. So c6, knight e6, black is in big trouble.
yes,
That's why knight e7 is not very good. And knight c6 obviously jumps under a pin. So c6, and now Kamara plays bishop c4.
Yeah. That's actually the bishop c5 move in that position with black is played immediately, but of course here with an extra tempo, this bishop b5 check is really nice.
I think there's also a very smart idea behind this, because the big question is, why do you need to give a check here to go back to c4? What's the big idea? So if White plays bishop c4, let's say castles, he can play knight c6. Again, getting some sort of a typical King's Indian position. And this is one of the big ideas, to play e5. So if the black pawn already stands on c6, obviously the knight is not getting to c6 anymore. And that's why he has to resort to knight e7. And again, e5, e6 is a big threat. So look at this. I mean, there are all kinds of these nuances here, and that's what Vincent wants to do. And this is also something that Bassem has to carefully navigate, not to fall into.
Yeah, and there's also always some ideas to play d5 for black, which White has to be careful of, because now c6 played, there is always some d5 idea.
Right. Also, knight e4, d5 is the idea.
Knight e4, d5, yes.
But okay, it was not played here. Castles, they decided to avoid this. I'm not sure why. I mean, this is probably a better position for White, at least according to engines. I know they love this stuff. Although, black is having an extra tempo, basically, in this position, because c6 is not such a bad move. some Caracan-like position, right? So
Yeah.
knight e7, knight f6. All right, so d5 is played. Takes, takes, bishop b3, knight c6, c3. And Angelica, do you know where I've seen this position?
Where?
Let me show you.
Yeah, okay, in Caracan, yeah. The pawn structure, yeah, but the problem is bishop on b6. You don't have bishop there, yeah?
Yeah, but sometimes black even does it like this.
Yes.
This is basically the same. Okay, so bishop f4 sometimes white plays, and the idea of this structure in the Caracan, exchange Caracan, is go for the king side attack. Like you see, you have the cosspad. Again, the pawn chain is like showing you the way. This is the way. You have to play at a king side, and if black at some point removes the bishop and plays e6, then his pawn chain is showing you how to play the queen side, right? So b5, a5, b4 at some point create a weakness on c3. And that's what we are having here right now. I'm not really sure why Keimer decided, yeah, he has the knight on d2. That's why he can play bishop f4. It just looks very similar.
It looks indeed very similar, and the question now is, what is bishop on b3 doing? Because if we compare it to the exchange Caracan, actually, then we have the bishop normally standing there on d3, and after bishop f5, there are ideas to take on f5, but not always, because if white takes on f5, it will strengthen the square on e4 for black. So that's why this is bishop f5 is a very strong idea.
And we have a word in the chat that bishop c4 is a novelty. That bishop d3 is the most played move here. Well, yeah, welcome to the modern age of chess engines. They just keep getting better and better, and this is definitely something that the young German has prepared, and it's very difficult for the players at the highest level to prepare something which they have never seen before. That's why the power of novelties, of new moves, is so important.
Absolutely. And we see that also it influences the time. We can see that for Vincent Keimer, he is like only having only spent around like 10 minutes, something like this, including the increment. Oh no, he has no increment, 6 minutes then he has. And Basa Amin is right now in the deep thought, has just played a move, queen c7, and he has 1 hour and 16 minutes left on the clock.
I think Keimer should be very happy about this position because he definitely appears to be in the prep. And not sure if both of them have any real experience in the exchange Caracan, because you can also get here, for example, from the London. So I would assume that Keimer has some experience. For example, in the London, after d4, what was it? Knight f4, knight f6, bishop f4, d5, e3, c5, here takes, takes. You also get to the same position. I mean, you can again toy with the order of moves, but that's the same structure. And black has one of these choices to play g6 and bishop g7. That's why, if you study the structure, then it's very easy for you to know to play, because you already know all the ideas.
Yeah, exactly. But the only thing is that this bishop is still on c1, and that could be an advantage, kind of an advantage for white, because it's not yet developed, and maybe there could be a span tempo and something else. The question is on what? I mean, there is always some knight f1 idea, knight f1, and then knight could jump on g3, for example, or e3.
Or maybe knight f1, g3, bishop f4. Or maybe, no, knight e5 doesn't look right. Let's say if I play knight e5, I'm underdeveloped, I'm trying to open the position. My instinct says this is not right. So let's say knight e5, d takes on e5, there could be some sort of a knight e4 or knight g4. It just makes no sense from my understanding, at least. So that's why I'm sure that also Vincent is not going to even look in this direction. He's going to play something more conventional, like knight f1.
Yeah, knight f1 looks very logical. Exactly with the idea. Okay, g3 is also a very good idea. Bishop f4. We want to bring that bishop out.
I mean, it's difficult to tell where this game is going to take us. For example, I can easily imagine black considering moves like knight a5, because the knight is not only threatening to kill the bishop, but also knight c4. He wants to play b5, b4 at some point. Now, I'm not sure if white allows the trade on b3. Bishop c2, this feels like a success for black. Takes, takes. b5, I think black is, in general, quite happy here.
Well, knight e4 also could be an idea. Knight e4.
Yeah, but they don't usually put the knight here on e4. Maybe it's a move, you know, I'm not going to argue, but I think according to the structure here, black normally plays at the queen side. So he plays e6 to solidify the center, he plays b5, a5, b4, and the knight very often goes to c4. But I'm not sure about this trade. Let's say knight f1, knight a5. Maybe allowing the trade on b3 is a good thing, because the bishop is never on b3. I know this position, the bishop is here, or the bishop is here. I don't know a position where the bishop stands on b3.
Maybe something like g3 in this position, letting
Sense.
black take.
It absolutely makes sense.
And after take, maybe take with a pawn, yeah?
Right, open the file, control some squares. And now maybe you're knight e4, because this sort of now looks strange. No, knight e4. I guess you want to win a tempo here, here, knight e3, something along the way like this could be played. I mean, white has the weakness on g2, h3, but black is not really ready to exploit it.
Yeah, indeed. So queen c7, and Vincent is taking time to rearrange his thoughts and preparation.
I mean, what else Vincent could be thinking about here?
I mean, knight e5 could be only in the thought process that he gives up the e pawn, e5 pawn later and takes the d5 pawn, but it looks just way too much for such a position because he's underdeveloped, yeah?
My guess, Angelica, is that Keimer is trying to get a feeling of this position. Maybe this is not even related to calculating some specific lines, because let's say, how many times do you think Keimer has played this position, this particular structure with white? I mean, a couple of times maybe? You know, so I think that every position that players normally get, it's sort of fresh, it's new, and you want to get a good feeling, right? Which piece goes where, which are the typical maneuvers for you, what the opponent normally responds to, and perhaps he already has long decided that he's going to play knight f1, but he just tries to get this a feeling of the positional, what's the soul of this position?
Is there anything like knight h4, or it's too much?
It looks strange,
Yeah,
but
looks
it doesn't mean it's not playable. It definitely looks strange. I'm not sure bishop d3 is a move. I mean, who knows? Yeah, I see the bar likes it actually, knight h4. If he managed to kill the bishop and put the knight on f3, then there's no need for knight f1. Actually, from this point of view, it makes sense. Maybe there's some bishop g4 moves, disrupting the queen's placement. f3? No. I'm not even looking. Although, I mean, I don't know, f3, bishop d7, g3. No, this is just so wrong on many levels. All right. I think that Keimer is out of the prep. Maybe queen c7 is something he doesn't know. But again, I mean, how deep can the prep go? So at some point you have to work yourself. Okay, let's check what else is happening here.
Maybe Lequan Liam we go again? I think we did a round of...
I think we did one round,
yes.
of everybody, so it's time to go back.
Okay, so...
So we have some moves. And we left it here after queen c2. Now black played knight e7, provoking white to play knight e5, trying to exploit the weakness. This prompted black to play bishop b7. We predicted this. I think that knight b5 somehow was not working. Maybe because of attacking this pawn, maybe because of c5. I really don't remember. But then sometimes you have to be very careful, because in these positions, you can jump under knight c4, which is quite a surprise move. Not here, I guess. I mean, I think I'm simply mixing up. But suddenly this square on d6 is difficult to defend, because d takes on c4 is bishop b7, rook b8, and, you know, You have to calculate what's happening here. But I think that this knight c4 was more common. Where was this? I think it was after bishop f4. I don't remember. Maybe here.
And here c5, and here c5, knight c4, yes?
No, not here. There were some lines. There were some lines like the c5, knight c4. And then suddenly it's very good. Yeah, because you see, oh, there's this big square. It also opens a fork on c7. Yeah, with the bishop at f4, this was working really good. So it can be missed. Anyway, rook d1, played by the Vietnamese grandmaster.
Rook a to d1, just trying to bring the forces to protect potentially the pawn on d4. And also looking at the pawn on d5, because white has to be ready at any moment. Black could play c5. And that's why you need to take care of those pawns. Those might be potentially hanging pawns. And rook is standing there perfectly, trying to look at the pawn.
But it's interesting that he plays rook a d1 and not rook f d1, because you would have thought, right, this rook probably belongs here because it has nothing to do on e1. After, let's say, bishop c1, bishop b2, if I fix the unfortunate placement of my bishop, the other rook belongs on c1, and yet chess is very concrete. So I guess there's something wrong with this. Maybe white simply has no time for repositioning the bishop on b2, because rook c1, you always have bishop a3 ideas. You need to watch out. So I guess that's why rook a d1 is played.
Yeah, I think because of this b3 square, that there are dark squares which are very, very weakened indeed. So that maybe was also one of the main ideas of Jules in his preparation, that he wanted to force this b3 move in the opening.
Right, and now he plays h6, a move I'm not entirely sure I understand. I mean, it's got to be something with bishop g5. Like maybe this. Knight of fate. There could be not bishop c1, but bishop g5. Now after knight e6, I could take it, and play e3. Or f4 first. I'm not really sure, but maybe this is what white wants. Think about maybe f4, the bishop on c1 is useless, and or maybe f4 indeed, maybe not e3, f4. And then again, black cannot really play c5, right? Because I always taken this pawn is under attack by a lot of things.
That actually could be pretty dangerous for black.
I'm not sure. Probably. Yeah.
Because where is your play? You know, the question. How do you want to, I mean, for black, like, where is your play? Like,
Yeah,
do you really want to play c5?
Probably not. And if you don't want to play c5, white is going to play e3, g4, g5, rook f3, rook h3. Some ideas here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why he's playing h6. It feels a waste of time, but
It's not really a waste of time. It's necessity.
I think that every single player, when they are playing out the opening, they're thinking how to cut corners. I mean, how do I get my ideal position with least amount of moves I have to make? Because if I manage to save a couple of tempi here and there, this gives me time to do something else. And this move h6, Angelique, I'm absolutely sure that the Frenchman wouldn't play it if he thought this is not a necessary move. So that's why here for black, there's no way to cut corners. So this bishop g5, bishop f6 for the French champion seemed too much of a threat. So that's why it's on the board.
And bishop c1 was played.
Yeah, he wants, I guess, to put the bishop back on b2 where it belongs.
So finally, to fix that inconvenience which happened, like when with the bishop on b4, bishop went to d2, and now he wants to put bishop where it belongs.
I think that black is going to play knight f8, the move which makes most sense to me. Or maybe c6. c6 also is a move. But here's the thing. I mean, if you play knight f8, you no longer are pressing the knight on e5, and white is more free to do things. Okay, after 96, of course, there's some pressure against the pawn on d4. So maybe black would be tempted to play c6, because c6, it looks ugly to you maybe, but it's a very common move in the Queen's Indian. Of course, it imprisons the bishop on b7, but it's already imprisoned. It's staring the pawn on d5, so what does it matter? And after c6, black is thinking about all kinds of ideas like take on e5. Let's say if white is careless, you need to watch out for knight g4. And it could be difficult to protect this pawn, right? Because if you play f4, there's some knight e3 forks, there's bishop c5 check, and if you're not ready, you could get in trouble. So that's why this c6 here, it does make sense. But there's one major drawback of this idea, that this bishop on b7 no longer is controlling the e4 square. So you always need to watch out, for e4.
Yeah, now actually white is the one who is striking in the center and bringing all the knight and pieces into the attack. So
Right.
this could go very easily wrong.
It could. That's why the Frenchman, you see, he is deeply concentrated. He is trying to get a feeling of this position. What's the right order of the moves? So here, the next couple of moves for Jules are going to be very important to find the most accurate way to play it out, because essentially when you are mixing up things against 2700 level player in opening, very often that's it. We saw what happened yesterday, right? I mean, Yu Yanyi just mixed up one move. He forgot to trade queens. Goodbye. That's it. He was gone. With what color? Unbelievable.
It was a complete opening disaster for him yesterday. Yeah, so that's why, of course, players have to spend some time, and we see that French Grandmaster is taking his time, he's serious, he's thinking. So while he's taking time, maybe we could check someone from the leaders, David Navarro, Vincent Keimer.
Let's do that.
Navarro we didn't check for a long time. We had that many exchanges happened in the game.
I don't think it's going to bring any excitement us today, is it?
It doesn't look so, but let's see how the game progressed.
Yeah. This game is confidently heading to a draw. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be a Nostradamus to say that this game is heading to a draw in the next half an hour, because that's what it looks like. For Navarra, perhaps the draw normally would be a good result, given the overall rankings, that because of this draw, he might lose even theoretical chances to win the tournament, perhaps not so great, but there's so little he can do. So rook e1, king d7, yeah, we left it here, right?
Yes, we left after bishop e5, saying that maybe Navarra doesn't have this f6 move, right? And that's why he traded the bishops. White is doubling on the e file, I think preparing for a trades, king d7 logical, and
Oh, look at that. I mean, David was not afraid of rook e6. That's interesting, because white keeps the idea to play bishop f5, something like rook e8, king f2, and maybe king d6. Perhaps the Chinese grandmaster felt that there's some danger.
maybe due to this double pawns on the c file, there could be some.
Perhaps, you know.
I think there are more waiting moves for black than for white. You know, that's.
That could be important, by the way. Indeed, you're right, because this pawn is not moving nowhere, and black always has c6, c5, c4, 3 extra moves. Perhaps, you're right. Good point. So that's the reason why the Chinese grandmaster decided not to force matters. He played rook e3, g6 played, just in case, not to miss anything, king f2, and you know, I can't even imagine how black could make a progress without moving this bishop. So as soon as the bishop goes, the rooks are going to disappear from the board. Take. And not sure, king e3, just avoid the bishop trade if you're not sure about the pawn endgame. And pretty positive that this game is exactly heading this way. And bishop f7 is on the board.
Bishop f7 is on the board. There is going to be trade at least of one pair of rooks, maybe of boss, and yeah.
But maybe Navarra is going to play it out. I mean, they have to.
Yes, oh, for sure.
Move 40, right?
They have to play out to move 40, yes.
At least in order to be able to accept the draw, because there's a rule They can't agree to a draw before move 40.
But,
Yeah.
but I think also, it could be maybe, I mean, I don't know, dangerous, but if both rooks are traded, this bishop endgame could be tricky, no?
No.
No?
No. I don't think so. At this level, no. I mean, maybe at a different level. At this level, I'm pretty sure that Yu Yanyi with 1 hour and 40 on the clock, with a simple position, simple to play ideas, I can't imagine him ever having any problems. But again, all kinds of things can happen. So right now, I think that most likely we are going to see this. The trades, maybe black is going to take with the king so that white has no access to c4. But does it really matter, these double pawns? I highly doubt it. Really. But of course, I mean, Navarra could try. He could try to play on, even after move 40. There's no risk for him. But of course, we are going to see.
Yeah, we're going to see. So yeah, not much happened here. We expect the rook trade. Maybe we go forward to the Vincent or Diak's game.
We haven't checked for a moment Daniel Bogdan Diak's
Yes.
game against Arjun Erigaisi. That's where we should go.
Yeah, this was a very interesting opening.
So, this bishop d2 weirdness. Like I said, Arjun had to choose between something. He decided to play bishop d7. C takes, knight c3, there you go. Now white can play knight c3. Knight e4, queen d1.
Now it's some kind of Sicilian structure, something like this.
Everything is about to disappear from the board. Again, you can take a couple of times in d5, play, let's say there's a possibility, play like this. But, I mean, maybe black could be ambitious, play for space with e5. No risk for him. So perhaps that's the reason why Diak played bishop g2. Erigaisi tries to keep the game going. That's how it feels, because he could have just traded on c3. Knight b4, a3, takes, knight c6. He sees the d4 square as a great outpost.
Now rook b1, trying to go for b4 ideas, also removing rook from the diagonal of the bishop. Yeah, b4 is an idea.
I mean, I'm not impressed. I tell you honestly, Angelique, I'm not impressed, because I think that white should be looking for more in opening, and this is the kind of position that normally we are seeing from the black's perspective with colors reversed.
Yes.
So even if white gets to play b4, I mean, black can just take it. He has a healthy position, and it just even feels that black is better, right? Because he has a beautiful bishop compared to this poor soul on d2. Okay, it's doing something, but not much. The knight is getting to d4, which is a great knight, better than the knight on c3. And all white has is this move b4.
Yeah, that's basically all it has. Maybe bishop e3, but then bishop is not protecting the knight on c2. But then, and the question, why did we play bishop d2 in the first place?
Even knight e4, I think it should be a playable move.
Yeah.
It's a square, so you take it. So knight e4, let's say white plays b4. But like I already said, okay, fine, you take it. I mean, I can take on b4, and this gives black some chances to organize an outside pass pawn.
Maybe rook b4.
Rook b4 and queen d7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why white should be happy about this? I mean, okay, maybe in some scenario white gets to play e3, d4. He weakens some light squares in the process. Okay, maybe queen b1, you know, b6, rook d8, rook c8. I choose black all day. So that's why I think that Diak's strategy to play these offbeat lines, it just starts to work against him. I mean, I think that you need to be playing some more mainstream theory to beat 2700. So.
Indeed, you have to be really careful in those lines, because they can just work against you. And here, like, you would love to have the light squared bishop, you know, somewhere on g2, f3, but you simply don't have it.
Right.
And,
Again, I mean, doesn't mean it's not playable. It is playable. I mean, you can play all kinds of openings, but it just doesn't look very impressive. Anyway, let's not jump to our conclusions. We are going to see what is going to happen this game. It's pretty obvious to me that Black has solved all of his opening problems. He even looks to be slightly better because of the space advantage, because of the knight on d4. But of course, the Romanian Grandmaster has incredible talent. He knows how to play out these weird positions, and even if he gets a worse position, he's a fierce defender. This is what we saw in his game against Yu Yunyi, when even at the 7th or even 8th hour, I think it was 7th hour, he was looking very fresh. He's fit, physically fit, right? So could be a long game.
Indeed, could be a very long game. So maybe we go to the other leader, Vincent Keimer. Check what's happening there.
All right.
Okay, not much. We missed only 2 moves, knight f1 and rook d8, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, let's see.
Yeah, so here Keimer spent a couple of minutes trying to figure out some nuances. Knight f1, rook d8. This game is going on very slowly, and I think this is also a perfect moment for us to make a break, right? Because you see the pace of the games has considerably slowed down. The players are out of the opening prep. They're making the decisions themselves. So that's why we are going to make our first scheduled break, but so that you don't go anywhere and you're still getting some insights from what's happening here in Biel Chess Festival, Angelika has prepared for you an interview with one of the winners of the most beautiful games played here in Biel Chess Festival. Everybody can participate by submitting their most beautiful games, and then they're invited to come here to the studio, record an interview, get prizes, and get some recognition for their input work. So again, don't go anywhere. See you in a moment. Enjoy the interview, and see you very soon.
Welcome to the Beauty Awards of the round number 4. I have here with me Alexis Rose and Denis Marketos, who played the game in the 4th round, and this game became the most beautiful game of the round in the ATO tournament. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you maybe show us some of your games, some insights in the opening or maybe later when the both sides were attacking?
Okay, so you played d4, knight f6, bishop f4. That's the London system. And I choose one of the, I wanted to play my prep, so I played what I played, e3, c5. So I guess I was not really sure about it, but I think it's like a good way to counter the London system. Don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, well, I'm having to kind of wait and see what you're doing. So, yeah, I agree. It's a good approach.
c3, normal, you defend the pawn. That's classical in the London system. Knight c6, knight f3, bishop e7, knight b2, and knight h5. I wanted to go for the bishop because I know that in those lines the black bishop is kind of strong, and I didn't want him to have his whole setup prepared, and so maybe it was a good idea to get him out of prep and get like a real chess game.
Maybe you should have played h3 before to have bishop coming back.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
have
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you can
Definitely an option. Yeah,
go
so
back
either.
on h3. So you went there, that's normal, and when I take, you take with the h1, and you open the h5 for the rook. b6, so that I can fianchetto the white bishop to get it on the nice diagonal. Because I could also play d5, but then it's a bit stuck with the e6 pawn. So it's kind of an option.
Yeah.
Bishop d3, attacking the pawn. I'm not sure he can take the pawn. I don't know if we could look at the for example, I play bishop d7. If you take, I have this. But then the thing is that maybe you can defend your bishop, no, with here, and queen h2, queen h1. Maybe you defend the, and you can always sacrifice and come in. And I didn't really want to go for this line. So I played h6 so that I don't get any problems.
Yep.
You played queen e2.
Just developing.
D5. Bishop b5, pinning the knight, and I have to defend bishop d7. Rook c1.
Taking your bishop off the long diagonal.
Yep. Bishop c1 to put pressure. And here I play rook b8. That's kind of a strange move. I'm not sure about it, but my idea was to further in the future push b4, and it's supported by the rook. And so maybe it's an idea, I'm not sure. Castle c4. Okay, so c4 is not a good move, but I wanted to try it. And it's not a good move because he can always play b3 and undermine the whole structure. And so it completely shows that c4 is a useful move when he plays b3.
Anyway, Alexei must have known I wasn't going to play b3 today for some reason.
Rook f1. So you want to play e4 here?
Yeah, preparing for the e4 break, very thematic.
Sure.
In London.
And also when you play e4, you put pressure on the c4 pawn. That's
Yeah, that's why one of the disadvantages of the c4 that white can immediately go for this
Yeah.
e4.
Castle, e4, and like you just opening the structure in rook e8, so to protect the bishop when he takes, and there's no bishop takes, and queen takes e7.
Natural developing move. Yeah.
Sure. So you took. Maybe you should have played d4/5. I'm not sure about the.
Yeah, now we're playing a very locked position, and our bishop's tucked away on.
Yeah, but he can come back like on
Yeah,
this
I
b1 h7 diagonal.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Yeah, it's made it a little harder to break with f6 because now the rook's in the. You've got.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
that's an idea.
E takes, and he has to move the queen. Otherwise, he loses the pawn on a tactic. Like for example, if he plays king h1, he loses a pawn on bishop a3, attacking the queen. Goes back, and then I take his pawn, and I think it's a bit more than a pawn. Like it's the b3 pawn, the b2 pawn. That's
Yeah,
an
absolutely.
important
Yeah.
pawn,
That's why I played queen d1. Yeah.
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 So you played queen d1, a6. So there's a little tactic like bishop takes rook a8 and getting in with the rook. I'm not sure it's good, but
Yeah, like I'm feeling like I don't know. You're better at this stage. I'm not so happy. I'm not in any sort of prep. I'm not going along the lines. I was hoping.
bishop. Oula. Okay. Bishop takes. Knight e5. That was a good move, centralizing the knight. And now I realize that my bishops are not as good as the knight because it's kind of a close position. So the bishop pair now seems a bit useful in this position. Bishop b7, queen f3 with ideas of mating me. Bishop f6 and queen h5, really going for the attack.
Yeah, hoping you kind of push g6, just kind of weaken the squeeze a bit.
Queen c7, defending the f7 pawn and always having an eye on the knights. You played f4, like that was.
Yeah, just reinforcing the knight. It's better in lines where you don't have the pawn there because
Sure.
you kind of lift the rook.
And also,
It's just
and also at the end game you have the long time double pawns weakness. If you take with the f pawn, and if you take with the d pawn, then I can always push d4 and get the rook in if I play rook d8. So
maybe.
rook b d8 with the idea if I take, he's gonna take d and push, but he's not gonna take d. I knew it, but I mean you never know. I didn't really know what to do this position, so
Yeah. Maybe
go.
we can go forward a bit to. I mean, what's interesting is we get a bit close to the end game, and then I go on the attack, and then you swing around. I think that's where the game really got.
Sure. So rook e2. I don't want to let him double the rook, so I takes, queen takes, f takes, a5. I don't know why I played a5. I thought it was a good move because I was preventing his knight from coming in, and also preventing him from playing, what was the idea? Yeah, to play a4 and preventing for him from playing b3, because I would get a pass one, but it didn't even work because the knight was defending the square. But okay, knight f1.
Be playing D3 now.
Yeah,
Really needs to be playing D3.
so knight f1,
Blind to it this game.
so that you can come in e3 and then...
Yeah, looking at the backward pawn.
and
Focus there.
I should have played bishop c8 to prevent him from coming on here, but I played king f8, bring the king to the game because it's endgame. Oh, whoa, that was not the good. Okay, knight e3, and here I just didn't think for a long time and just played bishop a6 with the idea of pushing here.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you come on f5, I know you played rook f1 first, and here I should have played bishop c8. I mean, so that you can't come and trade, and I get the rook endgame. But I played b5, and that was a bad move because then you played a3, preventing me from pushing, and I can still play bishop c8 and preventing the knight from coming. But I played bishop b7, always defending the pawn, and now you come in, and now it's kind of have problems here, and you're threatening this with a double a fork here, forking the pawn and the bishop, and I can't defend the pawn with the bishop. So I have to play bishop c6 or bishop a8. Yeah, knight d6, and the knight is like clearly coming in, and I clearly have some problems here. I think you were winning here. No,
Yeah,
Yes,
I felt like
yes.
I was winning. Yeah, it didn't turn out that way.
yeah, and rook d7, and I think you could have played.
Now I think I need to get rid of this pawn.
You have to play e6 here.
E6,
Yeah,
E6 is
e6 was the winning move, I think, and I got scared of this move.
E6.
And no, I can't because
No,
I
but
lose
the
the rook.
question
Oh, yes,
is
yeah.
here.
Yeah, that was the thing. So
Yes.
that's why you have to play
that's-
e6 before, like before you come in, when you have the knight. No, there was one moment you could have played e6, and that was
Here, maybe.
just before maybe here bishop b7 e6, and you're crushing because I'm pinned.
The only move is this, but then the knight is coming
Yeah,
and
and push the pawn, so I have to come here, and then I lose this pawn. So I was bad.
Okay.
But okay, rook no, where were we? Yeah, bishop c, knight d6, d7, rook f4. I didn't really understand why you played rook f4.
Yeah. Now I've got to try to remember. Stealing it more into the game, but I mean the right move here is to try and get this G pawn up. I think.
What was this? No. Yeah.
Not sure where to go at the moment. That's the.
maybe you wanted to keep pressure on f7 and bring the king somewhere.
Yes, yeah. That's right. It's to lift it and I think start to get the king into the game. Let's see the next.
Played f6. Oula. Okay, f6. That was a difficult move because I had to calculate it very precisely and see that at the end of the variation, like here, I had a king fork.
Yeah, but
I think that you,
do you not just pick up the knight?
yes, just
Yeah,
maybe
okay.
here, just
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you don't have.
Now you're worried about check.
Just
king
take.
takes, but
Yeah.
there was an. Yeah, f6 was. I had to calculate well and precisely,
Yes.
and
Okay.
so that was maybe. Okay, you played rook f2.
sometimes when you go down on time, you get some hallucination ghosts and everything. So
Yeah, I get that often.
yes. So you think, okay, I take here, the knight is still protected, but the pawn is already gone. But yeah,
That was, yeah.
yeah, that happens all the time. Yeah. H5 was played.
H5. Yeah, that was to prevent him from coming back and having a double attack on the pawn when he takes, and the knight comes here, and the pawn is not hanging.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I can just show quickly what was the problem with. Like I was thinking maybe if I play a random move, he comes here. No, sorry. He takes first. No, he can't take because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. I mean.
This always
okay.
happens. Yes.
Such a hard game.
Knight f5, king f7, defending the pawns, rook e2, king a6, bringing the king, knight h4, rook b7. I want to play b4. He took. I took with the king because I can only take with the king. Knight f3 and rook b8, always preventing him from coming,
Yeah.
trying like some.
I think when the pawn was on e5, it was like still winning for white, and now once pawn is gone, it's around equal right now.
Now it's a draw, yeah.
But I think, yeah, I mean, for me, me to play. What did I
Oh,
do?
wait a sec. Yeah, you played
95 was played,
Yeah,
yes.
you played 95.
And then did I push here?
No, it's my turn, but I played
Yeah.
bishop e8. And I think you should have pushed maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because this just caught me later on, and ultimately
Yeah.
I think led to a victory.
But so you played rook f2 check, king e7, and rook f4 again, b4, opening the position here, a takes, king h2, b takes, and rook b3 attacking the pawn. You have to defend, and now your pieces are gonna start like mixing up together.
Yeah.
I'm playing king e6, king h3, rook b1.
Everything, mate.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it. Rook c1, attacking the pawn, putting pressure. Rook e3.
Like, why didn't I push g4?
You mean when king was on h3, yes?
Well, no, but even whether is that
Oh, wait,
not
no.
I
after
think
rook
here.
c1, here, g4.
I think also here. I think here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the move. We
Yeah.
looked at it afterwards,
Yeah.
and
okay? Anyway, yeah. So
Yeah.
we're stuck now. I said there was an advantage, and I feel like it's gone.
so you played rook e3, king a5, f5,
Different cheap tactic.
knight f3, bishop b7.
Wasn't there some knight c4 take or something? Something like this? Maybe problem. Maybe
Yeah.
this pawn is a problem.
Yeah,
I
that was
don't
the
know.
problem. Because I'm gonna win this endgame because I have the pass pawn.
Mhm.
Well, maybe it's no. I think it's
Well,
still a
it's
draw
a-
because you
it's a-
come here.
Well, I mean, your king is trapped.
maybe.
Let's just go back with the rook there. You can't bring your king. I mean, what happens if I just go here? Now we're going
I
to
can.
swap off.
Yeah, if you swap the
Yeah, I think
pawns,
you will have to, yeah.
It's a because if you go here, I can push and then bring the king, and win the pawn. So I'm not sure.
What are you saying?
Like,
so you push?
No, it's your
No,
turn.
your
You
turn.
play this to attack
no,
my
I
no.
don't.
You don't.
Yes, okay.
And now I can come. So maybe like this. Oh no. Wait a second. No, first I play here. Here and now I can come here.
And now I think you have to
oops.
protect, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the problem will be this move.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, I mean, it's a still a draw. Like,
Yeah.
you
but
take
have
this
to,
pawn. and-
now it's winning.
Actually, now it's winning. Wait a second.
Yeah,
You cannot get back.
Now you
Yeah.
have to go here.
Anyway, quite a
Whoa.
few tricks.
Sorry.
Quite a few tricks. in the,
Yes.
So yeah, that was the.
Okay.
Okay, so you play knight f3,